The Super Bowl matchup is finally set. This is the opening line report. Kelly Stewart here with Teddy covers every single Monday morning, 11 a.m. Eastern, 8 a.m. Pacific. Teddy, let's talk about what we saw yesterday. The kicking for losers narrative got obliterated. All I wanted Sean Payton to do was kick that field goal when he should have and not when he did. That being said, my Broncos lost, but they did get me the cover.
So what we're going to do, obviously, there's two shows for the Super Bowl. So this week's show, we're going to talk about the game. Next week's show, we're going to talk about the props as a general thought. Both shows, we should have time, plenty of time at the end. If you guys want to ask questions, please put your questions in the Slack or in the chat, I should say. You can put them in Slack, but I won't see them. But if you put your questions in the chat, we'll do our best to answer as many as we can before this show is through. When it comes to the Super Bowl matchup, and Kel, I want to start with history. Okay, we're going to go through the games, and we're going to go through where, what happened yesterday and all that. But when you're breaking down the Super Bowl, should I start with the history or should I start with yesterday's games? You tell me.
I want to talk about yesterday's games because I need like a little mini therapy session like we do every Monday morning.
Sure. All right.
Because I always like to talk about it with you because what Kelly's eyes saw might not be what our audience eyes saw, what Teddy's eyes might have seen. So, right, sometimes our eyes can fool us in the actual outcome of the game. What I love about this show is we're talking pure numbers. We're talking power ratings. We are talking about, did this team accidentally cover or did this team actually win by a margin, even though the final score didn't indicate that? So I want to start off first with the AFC Championship and bitch about Sean Payton.
Okay. And I mean, we Dan and I were talking about it before we came on air in terms of New England. They've had an easy run. All right. I can't think of many easier runs to the Super Bowl than what the Patriots have just faced. The weather impacted all three games, and weather yesterday, that was not an expected blizzard. That was just something coming off the Front Range. And guess what? By the way, you got the conditions now in Denver that significantly affected the game, and they had weather in each of the first two games of their postseason run. So all three games, weather was a factor for New England, so they were battle tested in those conditions. And of course, the Chargers were a warm weather team in the cold, and the Chargers played poorly. Their offensive line got abused. And the Texans were a warm weather team in the cold, and they played poorly, and their offensive line got abused. And C.J. Stroud had a bad game, and Nico Collins didn't play. And then they faced the Broncos with a quarterback who hadn't taken a snap in 3 years. And again, the weather had a huge impact. And again, their opponent couldn't run the football, and the offensive line didn't play well. I mean, New England got to the Super Bowl. They got 12 first downs yesterday. They had 2 passing first downs. They gained 3.2 yards per play. Last week, they got 13 first downs. They only got 2 of 6 with their red zone opportunities in the playoffs. What have the Patriots done? How have they gotten here? One, their opponents was right. They had 1 penalty yesterday. Again, the 3 playoff games, a combined total of 6 penalties accepted by New England's opponents. They've been playing clean football. The defense has forced 2 5-2 turnovers. The offense 0 3-1. That's a +5 turnover margin here in the postseason. Now, Philly had a +10 last year in their 3 games to get to the Super Bowl, and that didn't affect them negatively in the big game. But the turnover margin is certainly something to consider here, and that's why the Patriots are here. They've had the right opponents. They haven't beat themselves with penalties, and they won the turnover battle in every game. Now, we talk about this defense, and again, Chargers didn't play well, Texans didn't play well, Broncos didn't play well. Some of that has to do with the 3 opponents. We have to give the Patriots defense all kinds of credit. They've given up 26 points in 3 playoff games. The last time a team allowed fewer points over 3 playoff games for a Super Bowl appearance, that would be the 2000 Ravens, who were, Ray Lewis's defense. And that was a bet-on team in the big game as well, not just prior to the big game. But, of course, offensively, the Patriots have only scored 18 points a game here in the playoffs. That's the fewest by any team to make the Super Bowl since the 1979 Rams with Vince Ferragamo, who got 15 points a game, Steph Diggs afterwards, quote, "I'll take an ugly win before I take a pretty loss. Nobody's satisfied, happy but not complacent. We're blessed to be where we are, but we know there's more out there for us." And certainly from an offensive standpoint, the Patriots have not played good offensive football this postseason. They may well have a better game than the one we just saw. Now, you talked about Sean Payton, and Payton after the game regretted his call from the, was it 4th and 1 from the Patriots 14 in the second quarter. chip shot field goal. That was before the snow came. That was before the weather turned. And at the time, Denver would have been gone up 10-0 had they kicked that field goal and it gone in. Of course, both teams missed field goals. But like the Patriots, it's worth noting, Patriots missed a couple of field goals yesterday. Kicker concerns could be an issue, especially when we start talking about Seattle's special teams. But Peyton, quote, "There's always regrets." Yeah, I mean, look, I felt here we are, 4th and 1. We felt close enough. So, yeah, there'll always be second thoughts. Obviously, not a lot of offense. After
Kenny, can I interject with that? Because here's what my argument is. And again, I'm not a football coach, but I think the play call was worse than the actual call to go for it. I mean, I'm sitting there as a Broncos fan going, what was that?
No argument. Conceptually, no argument with you. I mean, at the time in the game, before the weather turned, it didn't seem like being up 2 scores was going to be a huge deal. As the weather turned in that game, all of a sudden, any points matter, So I can get the sense from Peyton at the time. I didn't think the call was an egregious, oh, my God, what are you doing here? Take command of the game. You're at home. Go for it on 4th down. But the execution on that fourth quarter and the 4th down play call itself was
with a backup quarterback, and it's like, just take the easy 3 points. You mentioned the weather, and it was kind of weird because we joked about it here on the show that I'm not a meteorologist, but it did just come out of nowhere. So that's the other argument, is that, well, Peyton should have kicked because he knew the weather was coming. I'm like, did any of us know that weather was coming?
Nope. The forecast, it was. I'm sitting there going, because I had over, and the over couldn't have been more wrong in the game. I mean, you had the first touchdown, and then nothing happened the whole rest of the game. And before halftime, if one of the 2 field goals goes through, I'm like, yeah, we got a shot. We get to 17, and we're live. I was at 42.5, I think, was the number that I played over. So I'm like, if we can get to halftime with 17, we got a shot. And then it was missed field goal on both ends before the break, and it's like, all right. And then the weather came in the second half, and I went back and looked. I'm like, did I miss something? I actually had the forecast still up on the and had 0% chance of precipitation. Weather's like that. Sometimes there are factors that you don't expect, and that's the nature of what we do. But there was nothing more impactful in New England's run to the Super Bowl than having weather conditions in all 3 games. Weather helped them tremendously. Will there be weather in Santa Clara? Maybe.
I already checked the forecast. I'm going to be freezing. It's going to be in the 60s all next week when I am in San Francisco. But again, people need to remember San Francisco and Santa Clara could be just a million miles apart at times. So keep that in mind as well when I'm talking about being in San Francisco for Radio Row is completely different than being in Santa Clara for the Super Bowl. Teddy, final thoughts on that Broncos-Patriots game before we get into Seattle Rams.
Yeah, let me run a couple of quotes here. Because it's a Patriots team, they went 4-13 last year. They became the 3rd team, by the way, in the Super Bowl era to win a conference championship by scoring 10 points or less. Buffalo did it in 1991 and then lost the Super Bowl. Los Angeles beat Tampa in 1979. They, too, lost the Super Bowl. Of course, Vrabel won 3 Super Bowls with the Patriots and become the first head coach ever, if he wins this game, to play for a Super Bowl, win a Super Bowl with the team as a player and a coach. That being said, his quote, "I won't win it. It'll be the players that win the game. I promise you it won't be me that'll win it. But I promise you I'll do everything I can, our staff, to have them ready for the game." When we talk about Drake May, and obviously May led the NFL in completion percentage, led the NFL in passer rating. He led the NFL in yards per pass attempt. He had 2 huge runs yesterday. The 37-yard run, or the 137-yard run in the wild card range. But yesterday, he had the 28-yard run that set up the go-ahead field goal that ended up winning the game for New England. So his feet have been a huge factor. Turnovers were not an issue yesterday. Of course, May put the ball on the ground. He's getting the credit or he's taking the blame for all 6 fumbles. But he fumbled 6 times in the first 2 playoff games and lost 3 of them. Had a tip ball interception against the Chargers. But it's not a team like Seattle that's had turnover issues all year. Worth noting how young the Patriots are. The Patriots have 15 rookies on a Super Bowl team. All 11 draft choices made the team, and 4 undrafted free agents as well. So it is a very young Super Bowl team, much younger than Seattle in that regard.
All right, let's talk about that Seattle team and possibly Sean McVay. electing to go for it on 4th down as well. Like I said, it was a rough day for the kicking is for losers narrative when I thought, Anyway, Teddy, let's get into it. The Rams did cover the teaser for me with Indiana, so I'll take it. Nice just game that I didn't have a ton of action on. Didn't really care who won, but watching it was a lot more exciting than the Broncos-Patriots game from a scoring perspective, of course, because there wasn't really any weather per se. I mean, it was cold in Seattle, but not bone-chilling cold like we've seen in years prior. Talk to me about that game. Sean McVay electing not to kick it, and I kind of understand. They were down 4 with like 6 minutes left. Why would you kick it? Why would you not? I don't know. Break down that one for me and tell me about the Seattle offense, because my wheels are already turning for the Super Bowl, and we'll get into it here in a minute. But betting against that Seattle offense, even with this Patriots defense, a team that doesn't beat themselves, watching JSN yesterday, I was like, I don't know if I can take the Patriots defense here. They just might get obliterated.
Sure. Well, I mean, Seattle's defense got lit up by Puka the whole game. You know, Puka did 9 for 165 and a tutty, but with the game on the line on that last 4th down attempt from Matthew Stafford from the 4-yard line, no Puka, no Devontae. The 2 incomplete passes were to Mumfield and Ferguson, which speaks to Seattle's ability on the defensive side of the football, certainly in the red zone. And this game turned on. There were 2 things that happened. 2nd and 4 from the 6. Clock running down in the 4th quarter. The Rams going to punch in the touchdown to take the lead. Instead, Kyren Williams gets stuffed. Incomplete. That's certainly the key factor of the game. But this game was decided on a muff punt. That really was the difference in the game. That gave Seattle a cheap touchdown in a game that was decided by less than a touchdown. When we think back to the Rams season, special teams doomed their season, like literally. I think of the 5 regular season losses, special teams were an impact on 4 of them and a big impact on 3 of them. You had the game in Philly that I haven't forgotten. They covered for 60 minutes, and then on the last play of the game, a blocked field goal return for a touchdown the other way. LA's defense and LA's offense did enough. Their special teams cost them a trip to the Super Bowl. But Seattle's defense did enough, and I love what Seattle did when they got the ball back. They got the ball back at their own 6-yard line. There's 4:54 on the clock. They ran 11 plays before they punted it back, and when LA got the ball back, there was 25 seconds. They were at their own 7. The game was over. 11-play drive for the Seahawks. We're trying to run clock. What'd they do? 5 of those 11 plays, 5 of them were passes with Sam Darnold, aggressive. We talk about special teams, and I just talked about how New England missed field goals yesterday. And how yesterday's game was for Seattle largely decided by special teams. According to the analytics, it's been the best special teams unit Seattle's in the league. Rashid Shaheed with the punt returns and kick returns. The kicking game's been tremendous. The punting game's been tremendous. And obviously here, a muff punt for LA. Seattle falls on a difference in the ballgame. Now, talk about how well Drake May played in the playoffs or in the regular season. In the playoffs, obviously, Drake May has not been as good. Sam Darnold yesterday against the Rams defense, 25 for 36, 346 yards, 3 touchdowns. Oblique injury, no problem. And it wasn't a game where they could let Sam Darnold take it easy. Darnold had to do stuff. Quote, "It's amazing to be able to do with these guys in this locker room, but this coaching staff, it means the world to me." Now, obviously, you have Smith and Jigba, who's been, the leading receiver in the regular season. Quote, "That's what you saw today. You saw grit, determination, passion out there. You saw the group, a collective going out there, getting the job done. I told my team I'm going to do whatever it takes, whatever y'all asking me, whatever that might be." And of course, that was enough. Of course, Seattle's had turnover issues, and Darnold is a quarterback who's had turnover issues himself. 28 during the regular season. Sam Darnold made the Pro Bowl despite leading all players with 20 turnovers. But here in the last 3 games, Darnold 0 giveaways. Something to be said. Defensively, Seattle's gone 27 consecutive games without giving up a 100-yard rusher. They face Christian McCaffrey. They face Kyren Williams. They face Bijan Robinson and Jonathan Taylor just over the last 2 months. 6 games against those 4 RBs, no 100-yard rushers during that span. So certainly from a defensive standpoint, that's why Seattle's here. They're here because of their defense. New England can make the same argument.
Teddy, you better be careful with those Patriots fans. They got very mad at me that I said Drake May's performance in the playoffs have been lackluster at best. 85 yards for our guy yesterday.
They had 2 passing first downs yesterday. 2, which
and listen,
you don't
Drake,
see many teams winning
to seal the game. He did. He had that quarterback sneak there at the end. I don't want to discredit that at all, but it's not like we're seeing, the second coming of Andrew Luck, throwing major touchdown passes here.
That said, from when we think about the band, we haven't even talked about what the opening line was, any of that for the game, which we're about to do right now, because this is an opening line report. But what are we looking for in general? You want a team that hasn't played their best, that's undervalued in the marketplace. And of these 2 teams, New England offensively, I'm confident they have a better game in them than what we just saw. I'm confident they have a better game in them than the 3 games we've just seen.
Trust me. I'm not sitting here being unobjective, right? Like I had somebody tweet me yesterday, Kelly hates the Rams. I'm like, since when do I hate the Rams? I hate the Bears, I hate the Rams, I hate the Pats, I hate the Chiefs, I hate the Bengals. Like I just bet against teams and sometimes even my own. Yesterday was not one of those days. But I do want to get into this. Right now we've got almost 1,300 people watching live here on Monday morning. So shout out to all of you. Like our WagerTalk insider, the Carrillo says, smash that like button, guys. If you're looking to become a WagerTalk insider, wt.buzz/insiders. We're going to get some questions answered as well. But Teddy, Super Bowl opening line was all over the place, right? John Murray texted me, we're opening -4. We saw a lot of 4.5s. We saw some 5s. Here, the lone sportsbook in Florida, Hard Rock, sitting 5.5 -115 on the odds logic screen. Let's talk about it.
And there were 3.5s. There were a few 3.5s at the open, which I didn't see them on the screen, but I talked to multiple people. They're like, I just laid 3.5. I just laid 3.5. So they were out there. I think stations had them here in Vegas. Maybe Coast had them in Vegas. So 3.5 was the look-ahead line. Of course, the look-ahead lines were, by the way, Seattle 7.5 over Denver, 3.5 over New England, 8.5. The Rams were 8.5 over Denver, and also 3.5 over New England. Those were the look-ahead lines And of course, the 2 teams were, plus 150 for the Seahawks, plus 210 for the Rams, plus 250 for the Patriots, plus 1,100 for the Broncos. The favorites in both games won, and at least one of the 2 got the cover. When it comes to Super Bowl 60, Seattle is the road team apparently for Super Bowl 60. Look ahead line was Seattle -3.5. My powering number comes Seattle -2.5. The markets opened mostly 4, 4.5, and 5 last night. There were some rogue 3.5s out there. There were some rogue 5.5s out there, but mostly 4, 4.5/5. And it wasn't like all the Vegas books open 4 and all the global books open 5. It wasn't like all the sharp books open 5 and all the recreational books open 4. It was pretty scattered and random. And again, we talk about the key numbers, and people asked me, people gave me a little bit of grief in the comments on YouTube last week. And by all means, guys, give me grief in the comments on YouTube. We appreciate all your comments. I appreciate when you don't give me grief, but it's fine if you do. But they're saying, hey, look, man, 4 is not a key, 4.5 is not a key number, and it can go from 4.5 to 5.5. Doesn't matter. Why'd you give an emergency betting alert at 5.5? I give an emergency betting alert at 5.5 because it wasn't going to last. That's my job. When the line's not going to be there, I give an emergency betting alert. In this instance, with 5 not being the keyest of key numbers in the NFL, I would not be surprised we continue to see 4.5s and 5s in the marketplace, even 4s and 5s in the marketplace. Again, the Superbook's still at 4 right now, but I think they'll get to 4. The markets have moved to 4.5 largely. So I think we'll bounce 4.5, 5.
Let's talk about this, Teddy, because last week, as soon as you told me, Kelly, you got a 5.5, I immediately bet it. I unloaded because I already liked the Broncos side. Now I'd already had some Broncos money line and some other things, but I thought, all right, I'm gonna put a pretty sizable bet on the 5.5. Do we think this gets to 6? And okay, that's the most important key thing. So then to me, the question is 5.5 prominent in any world, 5.5 -115 at the Hard Rock, that I need to bet it here versus a 5 -105 somewhere else?
So it's not the only 5.5 I'm seeing. Looking at the Odds Logic live odds screen, and guys, check. I'm going to hype it because it's a freaking good product. Check out oddslogic.com. Go oddslogic.com/Teddy, and get a free 7-day trial and just play around with it. It makes it the day that literally the first time I used a live odds product, I was looking at some of free lines. I was looking at free lines. Oh, these are cool, whatever. And the first time I'm like, okay, I can adjust and manually adjust the screen and make this mine. And oh my God, I can put my recreational books here and I can put the books that I have accounts at here and I can see what's going on. It changes your perspective on sports betting. It makes you a better bettor immediately. Check it out, oddslogic.com/Teddy. But I am seeing like a 5.5 at Bet365 right now. But that's the exception rather than the rule. The early money has clearly come for Seattle. All right. The first bets have clearly come for the Seabags, not the Patriots. And again, we look at the two teams' postseason run. Seattle's postseason run has been more impressive in many sense than New England. So I'm not surprised that the first money is coming for Seattle. Now, will that continue? I don't see this getting a 6. And I certainly don't think it's getting down below 4. So I think it's going to trade in a fairly narrow range. There's no injury concerns really for either team. No big injuries. No one got hurt yesterday. They're not going to be all these players. We're wondering if they're going to play or not. It's not Mahomes and his Achilles and can he run around? None of that. So I'm not anticipating any significant line move off of the current number for the Super Bowl. I would say, 4.5, 5 is where we're going to be probably from here on out. So if you see those 3.5s or 5.5s, you can pick them off.
All right. That was all I was asking. I just didn't know if 5 minus 105 or 5.5 minus 115 was a better play. That 10 cents for that half point line. I know there's a lot of argument there, but 5 is a dead number, as they like to say.
Although 5 is less dead. 5 used to be the deadest.
Really dead. Now it's not as dead.
And when in a 2-point conversion world, 5 is no longer nearly as dead as it once was. So the 5 is worth something. I think mathematically it's short of 10 cents, though. I think it's worth 8 or 9 cents if memory serves correctly. So in theory, you're better at 5 minus 105 than 5.5 and minus.
Listen, I'm not in some big hurry to bet this game one way or another, right? I looked at it last night and I thought, all right, this looks like at the 5.5, this looks like a bet on Kelly team, right? Take the underdog plus 5.5, sprinkle a little bit on the money line. Defense wins championships. But then I mentioned that eye test and how Drake May, yes, has had to battle the weather. Let's just say it's a beautiful sunny day in Santa Clara, Sunday, almost 2 weeks from now, right? I think you're right. I think we would see a lot more deep passes to Kayshon Boutte. I think we would see this running game be able to really open up. But then I watch, Jackson Smith and Jigba, and I go, oh my God, this guy just gets open. Sam Darnold no longer seeing ghosts. I want to really break down this game from a side perspective a little bit deeper before I actually place a wager on this game.
Sure. And meanwhile, I want to talk about the total for a minute because we talked about the side.
I want you to talk about the total.
And it's time to talk about the total. Last night, we were looking at 45.5 and 46 out there, which is fairly low for a Super Bowl. And what are we seeing today? 45.5, 46. There is a 46.5 at DK, FanDuel, Superbook. I mean, a lot of the books have 46.5. Some of them are juiced to the under. DK's under minus 115, FanDuel's under minus 118. But it's worth noting in this instance, the leading indicator books, your Circas, your global books that we won't mention by name, they're on the lower end of this. They're on the 45.5/46 juice to the under. The books that cater to recreational bettors are at the 46.5 number by and large. It's not exclusive that way, but it does feel, at least initially, like, again, this doesn't mean anything. The money hasn't come in on the total yet. But the books that cater to the pros have the total a notch lower than the books that cater to the Joes. And by a notch, I mean like a half point. So, but there's definitely, that is, of the two, is where we're going to see a sharp square divide. We're much more likely to see a sharp square divide with the pros on the under and the Joes on the over in this game than any other fact, than anything on the side, I would think.
Okay. Interesting. George Barnes must be watching his odds logic screen. He said that we're starting to see some stuff go bye-bye. I do not have my odds logic screen open, Teddy, because, well, I have my books open because that's where I can bet. And so I have it on my phone. I have it on my screen. Let's kind of talk about a few more things. You mentioned we're going to get into the props next Monday. So props come out Westgate Superbook Wednesday night. You're going to be down there with some of our social media team, you, Bill Krakenberger, and a few other WagerTalk personalities, getting in some prop bets as well as kind of, helping our audience navigate maybe some early stuff they need to be wagering on. So we'll get into all of that next Monday. Today, we're talking strictly side and total. So if you guys have a question for Teddy, drop it in the chat. Also, give us a thumbs up while you're in there and maybe hit that subscribe button.
Yeah, I wouldn't argue with, talking a generalized props approach right now, because I want to talk just a couple of things that matter, okay? When you get that props packet from Westgate or anything, when you start looking at props for the Super Bowl, it's overwhelming. All right, it really. I mean, I remember the first time, back in the
rule book. It is. It's like, it's thick.
Yeah. So when Jay Cornegay was working at the Imperial Palace, that's my first Super Bowl in Vegas. That's 1999. That's Broncos Falcons. And my buddy came into town and hung out with me for the weekend. And then we're like, hey, let's go. I was like, we got to go to IP. That's where all the best props are. And we get this packet. I don't know where to start. And at that
time, props were so relatively not necessarily unheard of, but to the general public, they were besides the coin flip, I remember not knowing wait, I can bet on how many passing touchdowns and they were very basic. Now they're really intricate, some of these props.
Sure. So when it comes to betting the props, it's easy to be overwhelmed. Do your homework before you bet. That's all I can say is mispriced props are what wise guys covet. The sharp money is very comfortable betting a lot to win a little, as opposed to the public who's always going to bet the yes safety and yes overtime and yes 2-point conversion and look for the big plus prices. That's the square side of the equation for what it's worth. That's the biggest difference between casual bettors. Casual bettors are going to risk a little to make a lot, and the pros are comfortable risking a lot to win a little. And certainly when it comes to Super Bowl Sunday, it's fine to have fun. It's fine to enjoy the action, but it's not fine to blow your whole bankroll. Keep your unit sizes reasonable at this time of the year. So that's your generalized props approach. Do your homework. Don't start betting willy-nilly. Look for, don't be betting the sucker big plus price props and keep your unit sizes in the we're having fun range, not in the, oh my God, I just lost my whole bankroll range. Agree, Kel?
Yeah, I'm really just realizing George is right. All those fives are gone. My 5.5 is gone. We should have emergency betting alert at Teddy.
Well, so that's interesting enough because I was going to put an emergency betting alert on this game, but I haven't done it yet. But I think it is time.
Okay.
Right now, it is time. Doodly-oop. Dan?
Dan might be
putting the emergency betting alert Super Bowl style. This is what's going to happen on the Super Bowl. All right. It happens every year. Bettors come and they're going to lay the points with the favorite. I'm going to take the underdog on the money line. Ooh. If you like New England right now, DK plus 190, FanDuel plus 190. You can find plus 200s if you shop around. Circa just went down to 190. Superbook's at 190. Plus 190s, I do not think will be there for all that much longer.
You're right.
You want the Patriots on the money line. Bet that sooner rather than later. If you want Seattle on the money line, take your time.
Yeah.
But generally, what happens for Super Bowls, they lay the points with the favorite and they take the dog on the plus price of the money line. So the first money line comes out, this plus 190 is already shaded. It's going to get shaded more between now and kickoff. So plus 190 money line New England. That is your bet where there is urgency. There is no other urgent bet to make that I see at this time. So there's your emergency betting alert, which you don't always get for a big game. In this instance, Super Bowl 60. There's something that you got to bet this morning if you want to bet it. And
Yeah,
I see
plenty
Kelly.
of
Kelly, are you
190s.
betting it right now? I see your eyes all over the screen.
Listen,
You're hitting it
okay, so I'm kind of kicking myself because I had a couple different fives open and the minus 105 I was going to bet. And then I kept looking back and forth at our friends at the Hard Rock, and they even went to 4.5 minus 105. So I think at this point in time, I missed the 5.5. I missed the 5. Sit back and wait. I know a lot of people yesterday, immediately, Teddy, I got texts. Oh, I can't wait to hammer Seattle. I can't wait to hammer Seattle. And I think that was the initial like gut reaction, like, oh, come on, this Patriots offense. But I think you said it best. Every single Patriots playoff game was severely affected by weather. So
and this one could be too. Santa Clara, it's known for rain.
Yeah, very, very good point. So I think right now there's really, unless I was going to bet the plus 190, I think there's really no reason for me to hurry up and get involved.
Yeah. The only thing there's urgency on Monday morning is if you want the money line.
Okay. All right. Do we want to take some questions from the chat? Let's do it.
I'm out of steam. I got all my notes are done. All my how much we talked. So the beauty of the Super Bowl, again, we're going to spend the next 2 weeks talking about this one game. Usually I try to do 16 games in 50 minutes. Here I've done 30 minutes on one game. And that's the nature of the business. I get it. But yes, I'm happy to take questions. Whatever you guys want to ask.
All right, Matt Murray wants to talk about teasers. See, it's really funny, Teddy. I get so much grief about my teasers, which, by the way, I did some bookkeeping this morning. Up 22 units.
Awesome.
On my minus 110 teasers this year.
Nice.
That was a really good teaser year. So I need everybody to understand. Okay, but Matt, little untraditional teaser here. Talk about getting Pats plus 11 over 39.5 with a 6-point teaser minus 125.
It is not a bet that I would choose to make. I would understand that, Super Bowl is different. You're going to do stuff. But for me, I personally can't ever get away from Wongs, because that's what is proven to be profitable. When it comes to teasing totals, I can't think of, I'm trying to remember if I've ever, I'm sure I must have at one point, but I don't tease totals.
Where, and maybe this is like Las Vegas Chris does a lot with teasers, right? But with totals, I remember doing stuff with him on Bet On It, and with totals, I've never seen enough vindicated proof, right, mathematically, to say that you should be teasing totals. And the problem is, because this is a standalone game, everyone's going to want to tease the side and total.
Of course. So just for example, yesterday we had 58 points scored in the one game and 17 in the other. So you went 0 for 2 teasing totals yesterday. In the divisional round, how would you have done teasing totals? So you could have teased Seattle, San Fran, and that would have worked. Buffalo, Denver teasers didn't work. For the side that lost, Houston, New England teasers would have, and Chicago, LA teasers would not have. So the teasers 2 and 2. And again, when we're talking, so that's 2 and 4. So we have 2 in 6 playoff games so far. Carolina, LA teaser wouldn't have mattered. Green Bay, Chicago teaser wouldn't have mattered. Jacksonville, Buffalo was a push, so teaser mattered a lot. San Fran, Philly teaser mattered. Chargers, New England did not. Houston, Pittsburgh teaser did matter. So again, if half the games a teaser matters, the math isn't enough. That's not good enough, and we've seen less than half here this post, and I'm just going through it randomly. Obviously, that's not a big enough sample size, but so I'm not going to bet teasers in the Super Bowl personally. And if you do, best of luck, but it's not a positive expectation bet.
All right, I want to take Dave's
question. Thanks for asking.
Oh, I want to take Dave's question because he is a client of yours. He wants to know, he says he loves the show. Thank you for watching. You send out a few picks a day, bet them all, bet only one. Some of these say moneymaker pick, that one. Talk a little bit about the bankroll. So Teddy, those looking to partner up with you, right? Whether it's for an NBA season, whether it's for a NFL season, whether it's for college basketball, what do they need to look for when you're sending out plays, and when should they be betting, and what is the appropriate bankroll management on each one of these plays?
Sure. So I'm not a high volume player. There are guys at WagerTalk, you talk about Las Vegas Chris and Johnny. There are guys that put out, that are going to be in play all over the place. And if you want action, they're absolutely the guys that you want to be with. I'm going to be selective on your standard football weekend. Maybe we have, anywhere between 6 and 12 plays on average. Between NFL, college, Thursday night, Friday night, Saturday, Sunday, Monday. It's not, it's not 100 plays a weekend. It's, a dozen. And obviously the unit sizes, how you price your unit. I can't help you with how you price your unit sizes. All I say is that, what WagerTalk has in terms of a system of pricing where the max play is a 5% big ticket and then 4, 3, 2% below that. And in general, over the course of a weekend, if I have a dozen plays in football over the course of a week, let's say, or if I have, 10, 15 plays in the NBA or 10, 15, I have a little bit less in college these days. But even over the course of a week, you're not putting your whole bankroll necessarily in play. But the unit sizes are very clearly delineated when in the write-ups and when you get the picks. And again, it's so, this is my max bet and these are less than my max bet. Like obviously we don't have many big tickets. I have a handful a month at the most. But that's the basic strategy. I mean, did I miss something, Kel? I'm not exactly sure. Talk about the bankroll.
I think it's just trying to give it a look behind the method to your madness, right? If somebody's looking to partner up with you, like you said, you're going to be a lower volume guy. If you want a high volume guy, we've got those, right? Everybody, I just kind of wanted him, who was a specific client of yours, to be able to allow you to elaborate for people who could be potential clients in the future.
Well, I appreciate that. And again, we put out a ton of free content because it's good. And we built an audience of more than 240,000. Boy, by the way, guys, we appreciate the likes, the comments, the follows, and that we have a ton of free content every single day. But our bills are paid from selling plays, betting and selling plays. I don't get that. That's how we, as a site, we make our money. That's personally how you and I make our money. It's not about content. It's about winning, which is different. Two very different concepts. So certainly when it comes to what we're trying to accomplish for the clients, number one goal is don't burn people, don't bury anyone. Number two goal is make money, and that's the truth of it. And every once in a while, everyone has a bad stretch. I had a terrible stretch. I couldn't win an NBA game for a week, awful, lost 7 in a row. It made me crazy. It's going to happen. Once or twice a year, that is inevitably going to happen to anybody. When we manage our bankroll, when we pay attention to what's going on and don't stick our head in the sand and go, oh my God, I just lost 5 games in a row. I stuck. You sit down, you do your work, just like you would if you won 5 games in a row. These things do balance out. We go hot and cold. But at the end of it, we expect to make money. And from a bankroll standpoint, you have to be able to withstand, hey, Teddy had a shitty weekend. Teddy didn't make me any money. Teddy cost me money this weekend. There will be weekends like that. You have to be able to survive a crappy weekend so you have enough money on Monday. Hey, guess what? We can make some money. Teddy's rolling now. So when it comes to bankroll management, the concept is keep your unit sizes reasonable. Nothing's a lock. Make sure you're still in play.
As I said on Action, live to bet another day is the goal. Teddy, we got some other questions in the chat we can get to. Max wants to know, is there going to be easy value on player props under? Here's kind of my problem with just assuming, right? I do think the books are going to anticipate the general public betting one way on all these player props, and it's going to be over. So I do believe that. But also we've seen in past where Super Bowls go on a scoring frenzy, and next thing you know, everything goes over. The player props go over, the game goes over. So it's not safe to just assume that there is value on these unders.
Sure. There probably is some, but there's lots of, lots of closing value trophies, CLV trophies, there's value on bets.
Let's use this as an example. So I do a show with my friend Sammy P called Chicken Dinner, and he goes, Kelly, can you believe this Puka Nacua line? Can you believe it? 99.5 yards. They're out of their minds. And I said, yeah, I know. I agree with you. But I don't want to be holding an under ticket. I don't want to be holding an under ticket. JSN, every single week, I want to take that under every single week. I'm looking at it over on the splash side going, oh God, I want to take his under. Jared Stidham yesterday, 188.5 it opened. Oh, I want to take that over so bad. Oh my God, give me that over. And after that pass to Cortland Sutton, I text Ariel. I was like, I knew it. It still didn't go over. So it's a really fickle thing here, right? And injuries come into play as well as game plan. So when you are looking at some of these player props. Tell me what you're actually looking for, right? Like I like to script out the game in my head. I thought Cooper Kupp would go over 30 and a half passing yards last night because I said they're going to double team, triple team JSN. Guess what? They did. And it didn't matter. He still went way over his prop total or his receiving yards total, and Cooper Kupp still went under.
Sure. Again, there's no lot. There's certainly not many locks in this world, and books aren't known for. All right, yeah. So here's 300 props that you can't beat, but here's the one that everyone can beat. You know, it just doesn't work that way. I'm sorry. What are you asking me? I don't even know what
I'm basically asking. Like, how do you? So when you're headed to the Westgate on Wednesday, you're going to get this big prop packet.
Yep.
You know, right here, he's saying, "Hey,
the answer is slowly and methodically."
Okay.
That's the answer.
But are you going through like a game script in your mind?
Yeah, absolutely. That's how the whole. So when you have a good Super Bowl, it's because the game script that you came up with is the way the game is playing out. When you have a bad Super Bowl, is because nothing plays out like you thought it was going to. So of course you have a game script in your head. How's this going to play out? What are these two? You know, and from someone like me, I know I watch NFL every single Sunday. You know, I watch NFL Monday nights. I watch NFL Thursday nights. I watch the NFL Saturday games. I watch, 15 to 20 hours of NFL games every week, and usually more than one game at the same time. So I see a ton of NFL content. So you have a sense of this is what the coaches do. This is what the players do. This is what this guy does. This is what that guy does. And of course, after the games, I go through all the box scores, all the recaps. And that's my job. That's one of the beauties of, other guys have to go and, fix plumbing, and I get to freaking watch games and read box scores and try to analyze and pick future, stuff that's going to happen. And it's, this is the life we've chosen. But through that, you get a sense of what these teams are, how good they are, what these players can do, what the coaches are, and you develop a game plan. This, from that, you start to see props that make sense with it. And that's how I approach it. But on Wednesday night, when I go down to the Westgate, I may bet something just because the line's moving on it. But in terms of my hardcore analysis, because something, again, when Westgate opens and then it's priced differently, most of the moves you see on the first night are arbitrage.
Well, there's a lot of, here's the other thing too. So Crack was explaining it to me last week that there used to be 200 guys down there on opening night.
Yeah.
And last year it was about half. Yeah. But the still reality is you get 2 bets back of the line.
Yeah.
So you've got to be super, super selective there in that first, call it 4 hours, because
it's arbitrage. That's what they're betting. Most of it is arbitrage. And that's, we talk about where the sharp money's going all the time. A lot of the sharp money is book A has a 3.5, book 3 is a 5.5. Which way do they think it's going to go? They either lay the 3.5 or take the 5.5. And it's not an opinion. It's just arbitrage. It's taking the number. With these props, there are many books that will offer many props starting today. Westgate used to open Thursday. Now they're like, hey, because it was slower last year, they're like, we got to get early to the table. That's why they're doing it Wednesday this year to have more of an impact. But what they're betting into is a marketplace where on Wednesday night, when the Westgate puts out the props, there aren't any props out there. So if they've got whoever, Kenneth Walker at 78.5, and someone else is Kenneth Walker at 72.5, the books, the first bets coming in are not going to have any opinion. They're just going to be either betting the 72.5 up or the 78.5 down. It's taking numbers that they don't think they're going to see again. And of course, obviously, we're all getting this prop pack at the same time. So it's not like you have 3 hours to analyze it before you're making bets. You're literally just betting stuff where you're like, I saw this over there at 43.5 yards and they have it priced at 47.5. Let's go under. That's what those first bets are, is largely arbitrage.
Okay. And thank you, Joe. You just had me double check that Cooper Kupp prop. I thought it was dead in the water. You are right. He did go over 30.5 passing yards.
Yeah, what are you worried about there?
Well, you know why? Because it didn't matter. I went 2-2 because Splash is basically like you're putting together game parlays, but you're going head to head with another peer. So you can go 3-1 and win. You're not going 2-2 and winning. So I knew I had already lost. It didn't matter how I lost. I just assumed that I also lost that one. All right, Teddy, we've got Wager Talk today coming up in about 15 minutes. Dan Alexander, Andy Lang, they're going to be talking tons of Super Bowl amongst other things like darts and tennis and lacrosse. That show is all over the board, but
we all around the world is where it is.
Yeah, they are all around the world. Anything you would like to leave our audience with?
So first of all, I want to thank you guys for being with us all year. Again, even on Super Bowl, 2000, you watching live. And all you watching on replay, we really appreciate it. I hyped Odds Logic. Check out oddslogic.com. Appreciate this. If you haven't followed, if you don't follow WagerTalk TV, now's the day. We get instant alerts every time these videos are live. 240,000 plus are following us, and we started with 0. Put out good content, so we appreciate the likes, the comments, the follows. Kelly and I both get into the comments on YouTube, so we appreciate comment below. Tell us what you think. Give us your opinions. And I'll do my best to respond. If nothing, I'll give you a heart. But thank you for all of your comments. And check out the website, wagertalk.com, my homepage, wt.buzz/TC. And we'll see you guys online.
Yeah, Teddy at Teddy_covers. Check out his stuff on Wednesday night. He's going to be going over those Westgate Superbook props, Bill Krakenberger. And I'm not sure who else is going. I'm going to figure that out shortly. But they're going to be down there with our social media team from Wager Talk. So if you see them there, definitely go up and say hello. Maybe pick Teddy's brain and take a peek at a couple of his tickets and somebody text me what they are. All jokes aside, thank you guys for hanging out with us every single Monday. We'll be back next Monday before I head to San Francisco. Teddy.
We got 2 Mondays. We'll be back the day. We'll go the day after this. Yeah. We the day, because to me that's the funnest show. It's the day after the Super Bowl because we go through all the props and we go through next year's. We go through the odds for the win the Super Bowl next year. I think it's short and quick, but it's a fun little recap after the big game. So be sure to tune in each of the next 2 Mondays. Next week we'll talk props heavy, and the week after we'll do a season recap and all that kind of stuff. It'll be a lot of fun, and we'll have time to answer questions on both shows. So please, if you have the opportunity, watch live and chime in the chat. We'll do our best to answer as many questions as we can. Thank you for watching Wager Talk TV.